This conference will now be recorded.
So just to examine the word iniquity and the context that it is given in the scriptures here. It says, all right, let us read from verse 9. It says, "Thus saith Yahweh, or the Lord God, no stranger, uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary of any stranger that is among the children of Israel." All right? And the Levites that are gone away far from me. Consider the context. It says they are gone far from me. When Israel went astray, which went astray away from me after their idols. So when you look at the context here, to go away from God, it means you are going to some other entity that is not God. And here the Bible describes it as an idol. So when Israel went away from God, they went to idols. So let me read again. When Israel went astray, which went astray away from me after their idols, they shall even bear their what? Iniquity. So to go away from God and to go after idols, it is called iniquity. All right? It is a sin. And in this case, it says it is iniquity to do so. It says, "Yet shall they be ministers in my sanctuary, having charge at the gates of the house and ministering to the house. They shall slay the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall stand before them to minister unto them. Because they ministered unto them before their idols." See what has happened? They have turned from God. Now the Levites were the ones who were to make offerings unto God are now making offerings unto idols. Right? So it says, because they ministered unto them before their idols and caused the house of Israel to fall into iniquity. Therefore have I lifted up mine hand against them, saith God, and they shall bear their iniquity. So look at what this is talking about. This is saying that the people who God has given the charge to come before him to offer sacrifices before him, they are gone after other gods and cause the people to go astray to worship other gods. Now he says they shall bear their iniquity. It is iniquity to do that. All right? And he says, because they ministered unto them before their idols and caused the house of Israel to fall into iniquity. And he says, they shall bear their iniquity. All right? Now, you see that to go away from God is really to go after other gods. To turn away from God is to turn to other gods. And this, the Bible describes as iniquity. I want to show you something here in the book of Matthew. Matthew says something that we were looking at just recently, and it's very important because it says It says here from verse 21, and this is Christ speaking. It says, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many shall say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, we not prophesy, or have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name cast out devils? Have we not? And in thy name done many wonderful works? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that do what? Work iniquity. Remember that the children of Israel fell into iniquity because of their idolatry. And here, these people are coming to the realization that they were doing mighty works and miracles in a name they thought it was the name of the Son of the living God. But they are only finding out that they were idolaters at this last day. You know, I'm going to come back here, but let us go to a chapter in 24 where the disciples actually asked him about this particular event. It says, and as he sat down, reading from verse 3, upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? Notice carefully what they're asking. They want to know the sign. What is the sign of the coming of the Messiah when he will return to the earth? And they want to know when will be the end of the world. Obviously, they are associating the sign of his coming with the end of the world, or is coming with the end of the world. But there is a sign that should announce his coming. They want to know what is that sign. It says, and Yahushua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. What is he answering? He's answering the question that they just asked. What is a sign of your coming? And in this one line, this one verse, it sums up what the sign is, even though it's going to give details or furnish the disciples with the details that are to come. But he says to them that they should take heed that no man deceive you. This means that in the last days there shall be deception unlike any other time on earth. And he's saying to them, take heed, be careful, make sure that you are not deceived, because in the last days deception will be rampant. So much so that if it were possible, the very people of God would have been swept away by it. And so he's warning them. Of course, they would not have been alive at that time. So clearly, this is really to those who live in the very last days. And here we are today. He says, As he said to them, he says to us, take heed that no man deceives you. For many, he says, shall come in my name. What name? Saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. What is he saying? He's saying in the last days, the name Christ is going to cause many persons to be deceived. Because they hear Christ in somebody's name, they think that it is his name or it is him, and are deceived because of it. What do I mean by that? The name Christ or title Christ truly belongs to the Son of the living God. But what he's saying here is that others are going to assume this position, this title, take it onto themselves. And people are going to be drawn to these persons because of this title. That's the whole idea. People are going to be deceived because of this title, Christ. And if we are to think for ourselves and to look into what is being said here, Lord, the Messiah is saying, in the last days, you're going to see the name Christ associated with a name, and he is not that person. If I can put it another way, you're going to have others with the title Christ associated with their names, and many persons are going to be deceived because of this name or this title, Christ. He continues on to let me just swing over to chapter 25, because if you look at this, all of this is red writing, which signifies or indicates that the Messiah is speaking, Christ is talking, and there's no break in what he's saying. So he continues in the next chapter. It is Christ speaking, right? And it says, I'm going to go down a little further here. In verse, it says, when the Son of Man shall come. Now, he gave all that details, and you can look at it for yourselves. But remember the question that they were asking. What shall be the sign of your coming and the end of the world? And he says it's going to be based on deception. And he gave them details of it. But now he comes down to the end to explain to them now what happens when he comes to the end, when he really comes. So he says, when the Son of Man shall come, this is the end of the world, in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. All right? So this is his coming, and this is the last days. He says, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divided his sheep from the goats. So he's going to have two camps, one on the right, one on the left, just as a shepherd separates or divides the sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on the right hand, come you, or ye blessed of my Father. Come you that are blessed of my Father. inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungered. And this is another thing that I could go into. The kingdom that the man is going to inherit is one that God had established from the very day of the foundation of the world, from the beginning of the world, from the time of Adam. This is the kingdom that is to be restored, right? But let me continue. It says, "For I was an hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous," now you see, those on the right, the sheep, are righteous. He said, "Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? And when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee?" And the king shall answer and say unto them, "Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, unto me." I want you to pay attention to what is happening here. "Then ye shall say unto them that are on the left hand." So there are two camps, one on the right, one on the left. The one on the right are the sheep, and they are the righteous ones. It's clear now that those on the left are a different kind of people. It says, "Then he shall say unto them on the left, and depart from me, you cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungered, and you gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink." Look at it. No meat. Didn't give me anything to eat, and you didn't give me anything to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me not in, rather. Naked, and you clothed me not. Sick, and in prison, and you visited me not. Then shall they answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered and athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me. Make you wonder, who are these? Who are considered the least of these? These whom? It says, and these shall go away into everlasting punishment. Those on the left. But the righteous, those on the right, into life eternal. It makes you wonder. He says, inasmuch as you did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me. And in the same thing he said here to the righteous. It says, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. Who are these that are called the least of his brethren? Who are these? And it's a very important question to be answered, because it gives us context as to what Christ is talking about here. What is it that they have done, or what they have not done? Why they are in this place? Why are there two classes of people based on what they have done to those who are called the least of these, my brethren? Who are these? Now, Christ himself answers the question in the book of, I believe it is Mark. Mark chapter 9, verse 38, I believe it begins. Yes. Look at this. Very interesting. And we're going to come back to the very first passage that we read in Matthew chapter 7. But this is to give context to what that passage is saying. It says, "And John answered him, saying, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name." This is where we're going to camp a little bit to understand what is happening here. John says, "We saw one casting out devils in thy name." And he followed not us, meaning he is not a member of our group. He does not follow us. He's not a part of our camp or group or fellowship. And we forbid him because he followeth not us. So John is saying if he were following us, it would have been okay. If he were coming to our church, if he was a part of our membership here, I might have allowed him. We might have allowed him. But we told him to stop doing it because he's not a member of our group. But Yahushua said, "Forbid him not. But there is no man which shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me." Consider this verse. The Lord is saying that no one will have success. No one can have any success to do a miracle in his name that can lightly speak evil of me. Or you could put it another way, no one who has done any miracle in my name would ever speak evil of me. Right? Who would ever speak any evil about me or to be against me in any form or way. So the fact that this man was doing a miracle in the name of the Messiah, it means that he must have believed on him, right? And that is why he's doing it. And you have to understand what is happening in the spiritual realm, and what is it that Satan is fighting against. This man was casting out devils in the name of the Messiah, and he says, "Leave him alone. Anybody who is able to do this in my name, leave him alone." Because it is not possible to cast out devils in my name and yet speak evil of me. Now he says, "For he that is not against us is on our part," even though he's not coming, following us or walking with us. Look at this. And this is the part I want us to look at carefully. He says, "For whosoever shall give you a cup of water," in other words, give you drink, a cup of water to drink in my name, because you belong to me or to Christ. See what he's saying? Whosoever shall give you drink because you believe on my name, verily I say to you, he shall not lose his reward. Remember those two groups at the coming of Christ. One was on the right and one was on the left. The group that was on the right, they received a reward because of what? because of exactly what is being described here. He said, whosoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name, simply, I'm just adding this here, because you belong to Christ. Verily I say unto you, he shall not lose his reward. And whosoever shall offend one of these little ones that what? Believe in me, or the least, whosoever shall do anything to offend the least of the person that believes on my name. It is better for him that a millstone be hung about his neck and he were cast into the sea. Let's see if we can digest this a bit. What this is saying to me here is what he described earlier in Matthew 25. He says, whatever you do to the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. And here he's giving context that the least of these, he's talking about people who believe on his name. So he says, if you give somebody water to drink because they believe on my name, you will never lose your reward. But if you shall offend even the least of those who believe on my name, because this is the context. John is saying this man is casting out devils in your name. And he's saying to them, leave them alone, leave him alone, because if he were against us, he could not have done that. He must have believed on me. That is why he's able to do that. Because if he did not believe on me, which is to speak evil of me, he could not do any miracle using my name. And so he continues to say, now, when you see these persons who do not follow us, but believe on me, even if you give them a drink of water, because they believe on me, you shall not lose your reward. This is the context. He's saying, this man is not following us, but he believes on my name. Treat him good. Don't despise him. Treat him good. Those who believe on my name, if you even give them a drink, a cup of water, your reward is great. Not and you give a cup of water because the reason for the water is because the person believes on my name. You shall not lose your reward. And in the same way, whosoever shall offend one of these little one, in other words, the least of the person that believes on my name, believe in me. And remember, this is in the context of a man casting out devils in his name. And he's teaching his disciples that those who offend the least of the persons that believe on my name, it is were better for him that a millstone were hung about his neck and he were cast into the sea. It would be better if he were not alive. This person is damned. That is what he's saying. So when you look at it in this context, you understand what is happening in Matthew 25. When the two groups, one was on the right, one was on the left. Those on the right, they clearly were being rewarded because they treated the persons who believe on the name of the Messiah kindly because they believe on his name. And that is why he's saying to them, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, I wanted something to drink, you gave me to drink. When I was in prison, you visited me. An outcast, you came naked and you clothed me. And they said, when did we see you in these conditions and assisted you? And he said, whatever you do to the least of these, my brethren, and in this context, the least of those that believe in my name. So what were those persons? Was it that happened to those persons who were on the left? What is it that they did on the left? What they did was to persecute those who believed on his name. Interesting. They persecuted those that believed on his name. And so we're going to go back now to the very first chapter. And you're going to see now in verse 21. Now you're going to see the story of those who were on the right, because this is the very last day. So in the context of the king coming back, on the very last day, two groups of persons, one on the right and one on the left. Now this is going to give you a little more detail of the discourse between the king and those who were on the right. Not on the right, I'm sorry, on the left. Right? So you're going to see what it is. What was the trouble with those who were on the left? And why it was that they offended and persecuted those that believed on his name. He said, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. And before I even continue, I'm just going to go back. Sorry, I'm going to go back to 1 John, because we need to understand what is the will of the Father. Right? What is the will of the Father? Not everyone that says, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. So let us look at what the will of the Father is. And the will of the Father must be to keep his commandments. So 1 John 3 and verse let me see, right here, verse 21 or 22. Starting from verse 22, it says, and whosoever or whatsoever rather we ask, we receive of him, receive from God, because we keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. In other words, we do his will. See that? Whatsoever we ask, we receive of him, because we keep his commandments and do his will, those things that are pleasing in his sight. And this is his commandment. If you were ignorant of what God's commandment was or is, verse 23 says, this is his commandment, that we should believe on the name of his Son, Yahushua, the Messiah, and love one another as he gave us commandment. So this is the will of God. This is the commandment of God, that we should believe on the name of his son. Believe on the name that God gave his son. Any other name that is given to any man on earth is not the name that God gave to his son, because his son received a name which was above every other name. This is a name that God gave his son. And he's saying, believe on the name of my son. That is my only commandment. And those who do this are pleasing, doing that which is pleasing in my sight. Right? Now, I'm going to go back here now to where we started. Sorry, I'm doing the back and forth, but it is just for the context so we can understand clearly what is happening. Because many times we read this not understanding the context in which it was given. So here on the very last day, when the king returns, two groups are present, one on the left and one on the right. The one on the right are those who are righteous, right? That group on the left are those who would be damned, right? Workers of iniquity. Now it says here, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. And of course, we just read what the will of the Father is, that we believe on the name of his son. So you're going to see now what the problem is here, because they are saying, Lord, Lord, but they do not believe on the name of the Son of the Most High. And is that true? He's going to explain it to us now. It says, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord. And when we read this sometimes, we think that the questions are rhetorical. But the people on the left, these are on the left, they are asking the Lord if the name that they believed on, if it were truly not his name. And this is how they go about asking. They said unto him, Lord, Lord, on that day, this is the day when he comes, they are on the left. Lord, Lord. It says, have we not prophesied in thy name? We sometimes read this and think that they are being asking a rhetorical question. But they are genuinely asking if the name that they believed in and were preaching, if it were not his for real. In other words, if we rephrase this in a way that we can understand what was happening, they're asking, were we not prophesying in your name? You see that? Were we not prophesying in your name? Are you saying that we were not prophesying in your name? The name that we would have been keeping the Father's will if we believed it? Were we not prophesying in your name, Lord? Were we not casting out devils in your name? Was it not your name that we did these things? You see? You see the insight that we can get when we look at it this way. They're asking if all the things that they were doing if it was truly not in the name of the Son of the living God, because they are being told that they did not do the will of his Father. They are being told that you only said, Lord, Lord, but you have not done the will of my Father. And we read that the will of the Father was to believe on the name of his Son. And they're asking him now, are you telling us that that was not your name? Lord, Lord, were we not prophesying in your name? Was that not your name? It's like their hands are on their heads and they're asking, you're telling us that that was not your name? Were we not doing the Father's will? Indeed. Were we not casting out devils in your name? Remember, he said that none can cast out a devil or do a miracle in his name that would ever speak evil of him. Now they're asking, are you telling us that that was not your name? Right? It says, and are you telling us that those wonderful works we did, it was not in thy name? Look at what the emphasis is. Thy name, thy name, thy name. They're asking him, they asked him three questions, and it was pertaining to his name. Because they are really now understanding when it was too late that they were not doing the Father's will. They were calling upon the Lord, 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 but Lord who? But they were not doing the will of the Father, which was to believe on the name of the only begotten of the Father. Now they are holding their hands on their heads, so to speak, and they're asking, are you telling us we did not prophesy in your name? It was not your name when we were prophesying? Are you telling us that it was not your name when we cast out devils? Are you telling us that the wonderful works we did, it was not in your name? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. How could he have not known them if it were his name? Then he says, depart from me, you that do what? Work iniquity. You remember that the priests caused the children of Israel to fall into iniquity based or because of their idols. They were worshiping something and calling upon the name of something that was not God. They had turned away themselves from God to join to idols, and they fell into iniquity. It was at the very last day that these persons found that they had been deceived. Deceived by what? By a name that is associated with Christ. Christ is associated with the name, and because it has Christ, as we looked in the beginning, they believe that this is the name of the Son of the living God. And this name is the name that is widely accepted and known today. We see it in the printed Bibles, even in this one that we are reading. The name is a name that has Christ associated with it, and the name is Jesus Christ. So at the very last day, many will say, Lord, Lord. Are you saying that the name Jesus is not your name? When we were prophesying in the name of Jesus, that was not your name? And we were casting out devils in Jesus, was that not your name? We did many wonderful works in the name of Jesus. Was that not your name? And I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who worship idols. You that work iniquity, idolaters. So the name that they were believing on was the very one that he warned them. In this chapter, when he says, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ. And in the very last days, the name is Jesus Christ. That is the name that has Christ associated with it today. And shall deceive many. Not a few, but many will be deceived. And you can see exactly what has happened. In the very last days, those who believe on the true name of the Messiah, Yahushua, the Messiah, they were persecuted by those who believed on Jesus. They would not visit them. Not even a drink of water they would give them, because they despised them. Only to find out that the name that they believed and preached was not the name of the true Son of the living God. So this is the context. This is what has happened and what will happen. And the Lord says, take heed. And as it rings true to the disciples in his time, it rings more true to us in these last days. Take heed that no man deceive you. I'm going to pause here and close here, but thanks be to Yahweh for this insight in his word, to be able to understand what it is that God is trying to let his people know in these last days, that the majority of the world is deceived by a name with which Christ is associated, and they have gone wandering after something that is not God and fallen into iniquity. But the message is going out to call people back to God, back to truth, and back to light, and back to the true understanding. He says, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness, and then shall the end come. May the Lord be with us and guide us into true understanding of his will, that we may truly be able to do his will, and not just to say unto him, Lord, Lord, in the last days. Yahweh bless you in the name of Yahushua, the Messiah. I'm going to close the meeting here. Hope it is